It's time to reflect on 2020. Join me for an inwards conversation that will help you honestly and openly reflect on this past year. In this episode, you'll gain insights that will help you understand why the events that took place this year are actually paving the way for this new era for humanity. You'll also be offered reflective questions to help you anchor inwards. And I'll share with you the real lesson behind 2020, as well as the lesson for all of us as we move into 2021 and this next era for humanity. Now, I have created a brand new gift for you. Well, it's actually a resurrection of a gift that I always offer at this time of year called the New Year Manifesto. Now, I have edited the questions of the New Year Manifesto to really support you in closing off 2020 as you anchor into 2021. This is a free workbook that is filled with deeply profound journaling questions that will help you set the tone for this next era in your life. Many people who have done this workbook before in the past have said that it was a highly transformative experience for them. And I recommend that you do this at the end of the year, maybe even on New Year's Eve and or on New Year's Day, to really just reflect on the beauty that was this year, as well as the beauty that will come in 2021, because it's really easy to focus on all this shit that went down. But I encourage you to use this manifesto as a framework for you moving forward into 2021 as a human being, as a leader, as someone who is navigating what we are all navigating. So download the new year manifesto at rubyfremon.com/new year. Alternatively, you can also text #new year to 1781-336-0160. And if you are a leader who is ready to dive into the inner work required to really elevate your leadership and grow your movement, let's talk. I currently have a couple openings remaining for coaching and mentorship in 2021. All you have to do is apply today. Just head to rubyfremon.com/let's work together. That is let's work together. Now, if you dig this podcast and you want to connect outside of social media, because we all know what's happening to social media right now, head to rubyfremon.com/connect to get on my email list, or join me on Telegram, rubyfremon.com/Telegram. And I'm just going to say it right here. I will have a new community being birthed in 2021. So please do stay tuned for the news on that. I will keep you informed here on the podcast. If you're in my email community, I'll keep you informed there. And of course, you can still follow me on social media at I am Ruby. I will be there. However, my content there will be filtered, something that I hate doing, but I will continue to use mainstream social media only to guide you towards the unfiltered content that I will have in my other communities. Now, whether you're a loyal thought leader or a brand new listener, please take a moment to download a few episodes and drop a rating on review on iTunes. Every rating, every review, every download helps get this podcast to more leaders around the world. So please do that. And wow, that was a lot. Well, without further ado, let's close off this year, shall we? So now it is time to uncover the real lesson behind 2020. Hey, thought leaders, welcome to the final episode of what has been a pretty incredible and tumultuous year, the final episode of 2020. And what a year it's been. You know, upon the release of this episode, it'll be December 28th, 2020. And if you're anything like me, aka a human being who has just experienced everything that 2020 has thrown at us, then you're probably sitting with a lot right now. You're probably reflecting on a lot right now, feeling a lot right now. I mean, to be honest, usually at this time of year, we're all super excited about the year ahead, while at the same time reflecting on the year that we just had, what we accomplished, what we didn't accomplish, you know, and this year there's a slightly different energy. Yes, we have those people in our society who are clinging on to the idea that everything is going to go back to quote unquote normal as of January 1st, 2021. We have people in our society who are holding on to the belief that things are going to go back to normal because we've entered a new year. And we have those of us who realize that what took place this year is really just the beginning of a new chapter for our collective. I said this before, that the matrix is crumbling. You know, the veils have been lifted. So much was shown to us this year. And so many of us, if you're listening to this podcast episode, then I'm going to say it's safe to say that you are someone who saw what was behind those veils. You started to see more than you've ever seen before. And with that, the external matrix that you were once living in has crumbled. And with that, your internal matrix has also crumbled. We needed this. We needed this collapse in our society as a collective, in our world, to set the space, to create the space for this new era for humanity. And as dramatic as that sounds, it needed to happen. No revolutions were ever birthed out of a sense of normalcy. Never. New eras never were birthed from a sense of normalcy. That's never happened. Revolutions come through trials and tribulations. Revolutions come through war and famine. Revolutions come through the deconstruction of what we once believed was our reality. And so right now, there are those of us, again, if you're listening to this, you're most likely going to resonate with this. There are those of us who are privy to this information because we see it, because we're allowing ourselves to see what is actually taking place. And there's still a lot of questions. I want to invite you to understand that as much as you think you may know what's going on, please humble yourself, because there's so much that we don't know. So humble yourself from thinking you are too 5D or too spiritual or too conscious or too awake, because there is no such thing. We are simply living these different timelines, these different lifetimes, these different perceptions of what reality is. So there is so much that you still don't know. There's so much that we don't know. And it's our willingness to not know it all that allows us to start to see things with more clarity. And so this is really an invitation for you to step into a greater state of observation, both observing the external world and observing yourself and how you react to that external world. Now, I know that this episode is entitled The Real Lesson Behind 2020, and I'm going to get to that, but I really want to just talk about 2020 for a second. I just want us all to land, to ground our feet, to anchor ourselves and to root into the earth in this moment. And I want you to check in with your heart right now. How are you really feeling? Reflect back on this entire year, all 12 months. How are you really feeling right now? And have compassion for what you're feeling and all that you're feeling, because you might be feeling a multitude of different levels and degrees of emotions right now. And that's okay. It's important to reflect on what you gained this year as well as what you lost, what you let go of in order to create space for. How has this year impacted you and your business and your movement and your presence and your energy and your relationships? How has this year impacted your health and how you take care of yourself? In what ways has this year opened your eyes, and to what specifically? And also inviting yourself to consider that everything you think you know may not actually be the truth. And to be okay with that level of uncertainty. You know, people want to shame those who are living in fear right now. They want to shame those who are looking for answers outside of themselves. And I want to invite you to consider that we're all actually kind of the same. Those who are living in fear and waiting for these answers outside of themselves, waiting to be saved, are really just clinging on to a level of certainty. You know, whether it be the vaccine, you know, this vaccine is going to help us get back to a state of normalcy. So they cling on to that as the one thing that they can be certain of. We, as the conscious leaders, can also get caught up in the certainty, in wanting to cling on to some level of certainty. And maybe the certainty is in your belief of Agenda 2030. Maybe your certainty is in the belief of a certain political party or a certain outcome that's coming. But I want you to consider that nothing right now is certain. The only thing that you can be certain of is yourself and what you're feeling in this moment, what you know in this moment to be true of yourself. It's really interesting how we as humanity come together. You know, it doesn't matter what side we're on. There's always a ribbon of hope of wanting to unite with one another. It doesn't matter what side you're on, just wanting to unite. You know, we're pack animals. We run in packs. And so the idea of uniting together to overcome something is really built into our DNA. However, the point that so many of us miss is that in order to unite with each other, we must first unite with ourselves. And so 2020 being one of the most disconnected years of our lifetimes, a year that really paved the way for so much division and a depth of division that has been traumatizing for many. I mean, we're talking about the type of division that actually divides families and breaks apart loved ones, shatters relationships and friendships. That depth of division. This is what we've all just endured. And it's really fucking easy as a leader to get on your fucking pedestal, aka social media, grab your megaphone and shame anyone who isn't seeing what you're seeing or who isn't uniting as one to fight this big, bad, evil something. But if you're standing on that fucking pedestal, have you really done the work to unite within? Because that is necessary in order for us to unite with each other. And here's what I mean. We need to understand what makes us tick. We need to understand who we be. We need to understand what we value, what's most important to us. We need to understand what we're willing to sacrifice, what we're not willing to sacrifice, what are our non-negotiables. We need to understand what we fucking stand for, what we won't stand for. We need to understand what we're willing to let go of and for what. We need to get super fucking crystal clear on who we are as individuals in this collective. Because then and only then will we be able to unite together. It's like if every single person on this planet took responsibility for their health, and I mean like really did their absolute best to be their healthiest selves. If everyone did that, then wouldn't we be a healthier collective? You know, if everyone took responsibility for their personal growth, if everyone did their absolute best, and I'm not talking about my best, your individual absolute best to grow yourselves, to develop yourselves, then would we not be a more developed collective? And when it comes to health, because I know this comes up a lot in the whole discussion of being privileged with good health, and let me tell you, it doesn't matter what diagnosis you've been given as someone who's been given multiple incurable diagnoses, who has cured many of these things through holistic ways. You are not less than because you've been diagnosed with something. You are not less than because you're suffering from a disease or an impairment or something. You're not less than, but you do have a responsibility to be your healthiest self, your version, not mine. So I only say that to clarify this argument of privilege when it comes to health and well-being. We all have the power. We all do. To do our absolute best with our well-being. We have that. It's up to us to access it. So, as crazy as this year has been for a multitude of different reasons, I believe that this year had to happen and it had to unfold the way it unfolded, and it's going to continue into 2021 and into this next generation, because we have as a collective now entered a new era. And this collapse is the beginning of the new era, because you can't start one thing without ending another. So right now, what we're experiencing is the ending of what we once knew to be our society, what we once knew to be our sense of security and our sense of safety, what we once knew to be our government, what we once knew to be our healthcare system, what we once knew to be our family, our loved ones, our neighbors, our friends, what we once used to believe. All of this needs to collapse in order to step into this new era. So, with all of that being said, what is the real lesson behind 2020? Because there have been, I'm sure, so many lessons for you, just as there's been so many lessons for me. But I believe that the main lesson, the real lesson behind 2020 for humanity, is sovereignty. It's taking ownership of our mind, body, and spirit as individuals. It's learning to focus on controlling what's controllable. So focusing on what's within our control and not the things that are outside of our control. It was about diving deep in order to rise high, diving inwards to find that sovereignty. It was about focusing on what's really important to you and letting go of the rest. Standing firmly and confidently as the beings that we are, owning every single inch of you and understanding yourself so deeply that you would never, ever sacrifice your needs or negotiate your boundaries ever again. That's sovereignty. That's what this year has been about. And so if 2020's biggest lesson was sovereignty, then what is the lesson for 2021? Well, I believe that for many people, it's still going to be sovereignty, but really putting that into action. So when and if it comes to mandated vaccines, wherever you are, how will you practice your sovereignty, depending on what you believe? When it becomes to more closures, whether it's of businesses or of cities, the shutdowns, the lockdowns, how will you practice your sovereignty? When it comes to conversations with people, how will you practice your sovereignty? When it comes to running your businesses, how will you practice your sovereignty? When it comes to your messaging and how you show up and your presence, how will you practice your sovereignty? When it comes to your relationships with loved ones, how will you practice your sovereignty? I believe that this is the necessary work for us to set the foundation for this new era of humanity. And remember that the foundation for humanity is us. And when it comes to us, the only thing you have control over is you. So as we collectively rise into 2021, as we collectively say goodbye to 2020, as we collectively let go of feelings, things, people, experiences to create space for whatever it is that we are creating space for in 2021, as we collectively hold on to hope for humanity. Let us pray together for a new era where humans truly own the capacity, where humans really own their capacity to create their own lives, where humans really own their health and their well-being, where humans really own their sovereignty. Let us pray for that. Because when we start to own those things, that's when humanity will shift. Now, I want to support you in making that happen. So I created a new Year Manifesto. And if you've been in my community for a long time, you might remember this. I launch it at the end of every year. However, this year's New Year Manifesto is very different because I've taken into consideration 2020 and all that it's gifted us with. So head to rubyfremon.com/new year and download the New Year Manifesto and let that be the framework for your most powerfully transformative and impactful year yet. It is a workbook that provides several journaling prompts. And every year that I've launched this since 2016, I've had such incredible, profound feedback from people saying how transformative the experience was. These questions are intentionally and intuitively there to support you in reflecting on 2020 while also setting your own internal foundation for 2021. And it's free. So again, just go to rubyfremon.com/new year, download the New Year Manifesto, grab a journal, create a sacred space for you to dive inwards, and get journaling. It's a powerful, powerful exercise experience. And I'm just really excited to share it with you. So go do that and have an incredible new year. I know it's different this year. Some of you are alone. Some of you are in different spaces. Some of you will be with community, but wherever you are, really take the time to celebrate this year, as crazy as it's been. Use the New Year Manifesto to help you celebrate. The questions in there are designed for this. In fact, if you want, just use that for December 31st. Do it alone, gather your friends, create a sacred space together, complete the workbook. It's really there to support you to say goodbye to 2020 and say hello to 2021. So I'm wishing you all an incredible new year. My prayer for all of us is that we focus on our sovereignty, we practice sovereignty so that we may step into being a sovereign collective. Thank you so much for joining me for the final episode of 2020. Today's Thought Leader, where I'm challenging you to activate the leader within. Download the New Year Manifesto. It is so, so good. It's my favorite offer that I've created, and it's free, and it really just has some really profound questions that'll get you thinking. And it's something that I actually do every year as well. So go grab that at rubyfremon.com/new year, or alternatively, you can text hashtag new year to 1-781-336-0160. That's hashtag new year to 1-781-336-0160. Now I have one or two more spots to for leaders who want to work with me in 2021. If you're seeking a coach and mentor for the new year, please do reach out. All you have to do is head to rubyfremon.com/let's work together. That's let's-work-together. Now, those links and more will be in the show notes. Now, please do me a favor, download a few episodes and drop a rating and review on iTunes. If you're listening on iTunes, just help me get this podcast out to more leaders around the world. And then finally, let's connect on Telegram. So rubyfremon.com/Telegram. There's a community there that I'm building called The Rising. Alternatively, we can still also connect on social media. My handle is @IamRuby, but I am slowly shifting the type of content I'm sharing due to the new privacy policies and working on building communities off of traditional social media. So join me on Telegram for now, rubyfremon.com/Telegram, or come find me on social media @IamRuby. And then make sure you check back on Monday for an inspiring episode to kick off 2021. Thank you, leaders. Have an incredible new year.